How about now? Can you see my screen? I'm
I
confirmed
see
that
it.
it is being recorded. Okay, recording have started. So we'll start. So today let's go to look at what business analysis is, an introductory class to what business analysis is. I remember last week you made mention that you have read a lot of things about IT, business analysis, also having a computer engineering background. I believe that will also help you understand how systems work. Doing some computer
Yes.
engineering work as well, configuration, all of that will also help you understand how systems work. And as a business analyst, your job is basically to help stakeholders. When I say stakeholders, I mean people like you and I, right? To help stakeholders who don't understand how systems work, right? To help them interpret how they will get benefit from the system. One, and then two, to help technical people to understand what business minded stakeholders are saying. So let's say, for instance, if someone in the street say, I need a solution that can help me um, vote, cast election free and fair in the forthcoming 2023 election in Nigeria, right? That is what the layman needs out there. That is what a non-techie person needs. You just need a solution that will help them to cast election free and fair, right? Now, as a business analyst, it's now your duty to translate what that person needs technical requirements, into technical needs, into technical informations that will enable the software developer, the software engineer to write a code that will help to solve that problem or solve that need or meet that opportunity that someone in the street, that a businessman, that a government actually needs to solve within their processes or operations. So that is why business analysis play vital roles in improving systems, improving processes, improving human lives, improving organizations, generating revenue for businesses and organizations in different ways. So today we'll be looking at what business analysis is, introduction to business analysis. We'll look at what is business analysis. We'll also take a look at business analysis core concepts. What are the core concepts in business analysis? And then we'll look at the key terminologies and also stakeholders that we have in business analysis, right? What are the key terminologies in business analysis? Because for every career, right, there are industry jargons, right? Terminologies that we use that once you make use of those terminologies, they know that yes, you actually know what you're talking about. Just like in the education in the education industry, you don't call you don't call your customers, you call them students or candidates, right? But
Yes.
in the financial industry or in the e-commerce industry, you call them customers, right? You don't call them candidates. So also in the sports industry, especially football, you call them footballers. You don't call them candidates. So every industry has its own terminology. So that when you are talking in that industry, people will get to understand that you're sound and you understand what you're currently saying. Then we'll look at classification of requirements. I mentioned last week that as business analysts, basically what we do is to manage requirements in every situation, right? We start with identifying, defining, discovering, and then refining, analyzing, restructuring, and communicating and collaborating requirements with stakeholders, both business minded stakeholders and technical minded stakeholders. So, how do we classify all of the requirements that we manage in business analysis? We'll talk about the various classification schema or the various classification structure of requirements in business analysis. And then we'll end the class today looking at requirements and design cycle, how we move from requirements to design, because that is the goal. We need to go from the requirement, which is a representation of a need, right, to design, which is a representation of the solution. So how do we go from what is needed, what the president needs, what the CEO needs, what the business manager needs, what the customer needs, what our clients need, to what the developer needs to build the solutions, to what the DevOps needs to upload to deploy the solution, to what the quality assurance, that is the testers, need to validate the solution, to what the network engineer needs to do the proper configuration. So all of these are what we look at when we're talking about the requirements and design cycle. So we'll start right in looking at what is business analysis. But before we jump right in, I'm always of the opinion of trying to understand what do you know about business analysis. So what is business analysis to you? What is your understanding of business analysis?
Yes. From my own understanding, I see business analyst as problem solver.
No, not
These are
business
people that
analyst
come
now, not
together
business analyst.
to,
I'm not talking about what the business analysts do or who's a business analyst. My own is, what is business analysis? Business analysis is a profession, yeah, it's a career. So what is business analysis?
yes, okay. It is the process of analyzing requirements, creating requirements needed to create a solution or needed by developers to create a solution.
Okay. So what if we are not building a software solution? How then will you explain business analysis to somebody? Or how do you understand business analysis when we are not building a solution that is a software solution now?
Okay. When a solution is not involved, I think business analysis, to my own perspective, can be regarded as a process of helping businesses gain a footing, helping businesses to thrive.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you for that definition and also explanation. I always would like to always have your prior understanding of whatever thing we're doing, so that I'll know how best to explain to you. So business analysis on its own is a practice of enabling change. Now, when you say when the solution is not involved from the definition, right? What I asked, what the further clarification I made was that, what if a software solution? Because in business analysis, it's all about how you can go from point A to B. When there is no point B to go to, you make recommendation, and that recommendation is still a solution, right? So business analysis is the practice of enabling change in an enterprise. Now, an enterprise is a generic word. It could represent an organization. It could represent a team of two. It could represent an entire country. It could represent a community of people. So it's a process of practice of enabling change in an enterprise by, first of all, which is the most important thing, to define the needs. If we don't know what we need, then how can we find out what the solution will be? If you don't know point A, how do you think the point B should be, right? So the process of enabling change in an enterprise by defining the needs and recommending solutions that deliver value to stakeholders. Now, you need to make sure that your solutions deliver value to stakeholders, because you are a value creator, you are a value driver. As a business analyst, you are to drive value to our stakeholders. For every piece of requirement, for every piece of work, for every piece of solution you're recommending, right? The solution could be a feature to a particular product, right? It could be a tweak, an adjustment in a particular process of that business. It could be the addition of a new set of infrastructure or tool for that organization. For every solution we are recommending, you need to ensure that it delivers value. The value could be in terms of cutting down cost for stakeholders, right? The value could be in terms of generating revenue. The value could be in terms of increasing production volume. The value could be in terms of increasing our customers, that's our users on our platform. So we have different value that we have different things that value could speak to as a business and in business analysis. So business analysis basically enables an enterprise to articulate the needs and the rationale for a change. Why should we actually do this change? Why? And these are some of the common questions that business analysts ask a lot. Why? Why should we do this? Why should we change from point A to point B? Why is point A not working? Why do you think point B is going to work? Why do you think?
You're asking me, right?
No, I'm not asking you. I'm just saying these are some of the questions that business analysts ask in order to articulate why we should change, right? So why should we design and describe solutions that can deliver value? And these are some of the things that business analysts will always want to find out in the course of the initiative. And when I say initiative, I mean a project or a set of activity or tasks that need to be carried out to deliver a piece of value. Business analysis is performed on a variety of initiatives within an enterprise or beyond an enterprise. The initiative may be strategic, right? Whereby we are looking at it from a strategic point of view to build a strategy around the business, to build a strategy, maybe a marketing strategy, to build a production strategy, whatever thing. Or it could be tactical in the sense that we want to implement, we want to develop something, we want to build something that is relatable, right? Or it could be operational in terms of improving, right? Things like customer support, improving a current process. These are different initiatives that we can have in business analysis. And it can be used to understand what currently exists. It can also be used to understand what the future should look like. And that's the beauty of business analysis. Business analysis helps stakeholders to understand how the future will look like. In the current state, this is what we are doing. In the future state, this is what we are going to do. And this is what business analysis helps us to understand. Also helps us to determine the activities that is required to move from the current to the future state. So we'll look at the various sectors of business analysis, just as I mentioned now, talking about the strategic, the tactical, and the operational. So starting with the tactical analysis. Tactical analysis has to do with what we perform in IT business analysis. As an IT business analyst, you are doing a lot of tactical work because you need to be very, very technical. That's why you see people saying we are looking for a technical business analyst or an IT business analyst. It basically means that most of what you'll be doing will have to do with technical documentations, technical definitions, technical requirements, and also technical understanding of what needs to be done. So tactical business analysis involves IT business analysis. It involves you defining business rules for a solution. You say, okay, the rule is that this particular conditions needs to be fulfilled. If the password of the user does not satisfy at least 8 characters with alphanumeric and an uppercase and lowercase with special characters, if that password does not satisfy that condition, then the user should not be allowed to log in or to sign up or create an account on our product or on our platform. These are like business rules you are basically defining for that solution. It involves user experience, creating the best experience for the user. What process, what experience, what approach will enable the user to be able to make use of the products satisfactorily without having issues, without having bugs and all of that. It also involves product management and data analysis. You do a lot of managing the product. You do a lot of analyzing different data, both customer data, product data that comes to you, analyzing in order to most times to get to the root cause of some of the issues and some of the problems that exist in that particular scenario. Then we have the strategic analysis. Strategic analysis involves you doing a holistic understanding of the enterprise. So it involves enterprise analysis, trying to know what are the limitations and also capabilities of that enterprise, trying to know what are the strengths, what are the weaknesses, what are the opportunities, what are the threats for that particular organization, trying to know what are the political, environmental, technological, and other factors that affect that particular enterprise. It also affects involves you doing what we call market analysis. Market analysis helps you to understand the customer, what customer segments are involved, right? Who are the competitors within the market, right? On trying to understand market forces, such as using the Porter's 5 forces to know what are the difficulty or barriers of entering into this market, trying to understand who are the major competitors in this market, this market, is it driven by buyer power, that is by consumer power, or is driven by supplier power, right? What are the rivalry within the market? What are the product differences within the market? So doing a lot of market analysis, trying to understand the market forces using the broad factor analysis. And then it also involves doing a lot of business intelligence, trying to gain intelligence from the business drivers and business levers within the organization, doing a lot of business modeling, doing a lot of understanding the persona of the customers, doing a lot of market research, management consulting in order to recommend profitability or market expansion or market entry activities for a particular organization. And then strategic analysis also involves preparing of the business case, which helps us to justify the reason why we should actually invest in a particular initiative or in a particular idea. Many people have an idea, a lot of people have an idea, but the truth is that idea you have, is it feasible? Is it viable? Is it productive? Is it profitable? Right? So business case helps to justify all of this. It helps to answer all of these questions when we are at the stage of strategic analysis. And sometimes our initiatives or our projects could take the approach of operational analysis, right? In this situation, the solution currently exists, but we want to improve the efficiency, we want to improve the effectiveness, we want to optimize what currently exists. In situations whereby we want to optimize, improve, increase what currently exists, then that's where we are doing an operational analysis. This involves process improvement. So there's a process, for instance, there's a HR hiring process that every organization has. Probably want to improve that process, maybe because it's not efficient as we want, or probably instead of us to spend 2 weeks to instead of us to close out our hiring processes within 2 weeks, we are even finding ourselves closing it out within 6 weeks, 8 weeks, which is inappropriate. So we might say, okay, we want to improve our HR hiring processes. So we do an operational analysis to improve the process. It could be maybe in a factory, right? Maybe in Nestle, in Unilever, or any of these factories, maybe Vitafoam production factory or industry. They have a process that they use in manufacturing, and they realize that the current manufacturing processes is so cost intensive, and they're not generating revenue, they're not meeting their financial requirements and all of that. And they want to see how to improve that process, maybe to cut down some manual things they are doing and to automate some things, maybe to cut down the wastages or redundancy and what's not. So they do, at this stage, we do what we call process improvements to understand what is the current process, what should be the future process, how do we change from the current to the future process. So we do what we call process improvements. And then we also do what we call production support, providing support to customers, to users, so that they can become more efficient in or more optimized in their tasks. Now, that is it with what I call it, sectors of business analysis. We'll go in to start looking at what are the processes of business analysis? What are the typical process? Maybe we find ourselves in a project or in an initiative, and for every initiative, there's a typical flow to that. And as a business analyst, in those typical flow, in those typical processes, what is expected of us, or what do we do to arrive from the unknown to the known, or going from the known to the unknown? The first thing we do in business analysis is enterprise analysis. Whenever we find ourselves in an initiative, at this stage, we are asking a lot of questions. We are trying to find out a lot of details about the initiative, about the project, about the company, about our customers, about the market, about so many things at this particular point in time, at this stage, within a project, within an initiative. We are doing a lot of requirements elicitation, requirement gathering, requirement identification. We are doing a lot of synthesis of the requirements. And by the time we are done with that, we now come up with a strategic way to plan and manage the requirement. So we'll be able to look at the market, we'll be able to look at the organizational capabilities and all of that, right? So all the requirements we've gathered, all the information we've gathered during the last activity, how do we manage those information, those requirements? Where are we going to be storing the information? How are we going to make it accessible to end users? How are we going to ensure that people don't mess up with our documentation? How are we going to know? How are we going to measure our improvement? How are we going to assess areas of improvement and also areas of governance? Who has the authority to approve on our work that we are doing as a business analyst? Then after that, we do what we call requirements definition, requirement elicitation, whereby we engage different stakeholders. There are different ways we can basically elicit requirements. We can elicit requirements by interviewing people one-on-one. We can elicit requirements by organizing a workshop with various technocrats or stakeholders within that industry or within that initiative. We can elicit requirements by sharing surveys and questionnaires with stakeholders so they can provide input to help clarify or answer some salient questions that we have. We can even elicit requirements by organizing what we call a focus group. A focus group is when we get a list of pre-qualified users. There are a minimum of 6 and a maximum of 12, right? We can have 6 people, 7 people, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. We can have more than 12, and we can have less than 6. So having a list of a group of 6 to 12 pre-qualified users or stakeholders. These stakeholders could be potential end users. These stakeholders could be real-time customers that are currently using our products and services. We gather them, we organize what we call focus group for them to provide us with requirements, with responses, for them to express what they actually want us to build for them in the course of implementing that particular product or that particular solution. After we've done our requirement elicitation, the next thing we do is requirement analysis and modeling, right? So we basically model the requirement. We analyze the requirements. Analyzing requirements means asking a lot of questions, right? It means doing a lot of brain work. There's a requirement analysis approach. It means comparing to ensure that our requirements meets standard attributes such as the requirement being atomic, such as the requirement being not ambiguous, such as the requirement being testable, such as the requirement being prioritized, such as the requirement being traceable. So there are different attributes we consider when we are looking at requirement analysis and modeling, trying to understand how should the requirement flow, how would the requirements turn out in the course of that initiative. So requirement analysis and modeling. Once we are done with the requirement analysis and modeling and doing all of our documentation, trying to capture everything into what it ought to be and what it is, right? Doing a lot of modeling, using our use case diagram to draw the models, using our process flow diagrams to represent the models, using our context diagram or entity relationship diagram to represent the models, right? Once we're able to finish all of those drawings, we now do what we call requirement communication and collaboration. Requirement communication and collaboration is an ongoing, continuous task in the course of any initiative. All of these tasks you see here, they are ongoing and continuous, right? In the course of the initiative. At this point in time, we are communicating our requirements to stakeholders. We are trying to bring them up to speed what we think should be the solution to this. And not just about communicating with them, we also collaborate in ensuring that they deliver the said value. So you have documented a requirement for how we are going to build a solution, right? You don't just hand it over to the software developer or software engineer or hand it over to the implementation team for them to start implementing. Rather, you are part of that implementation. You are part of that development because you are right there with the developers, providing constant feedback, providing clarity, providing assistance to them so that they will better understand what needs to be done. And by the time we are done with that, the next thing we now do is what they call solution evaluation. Solution evaluation can come in different phases. It could come when we are doing the pilot, right? Trying to evaluate if the solution is actually going to deliver value to our stakeholders. It could be after the solution has been developed, right? We now do what they call solution analysis to understand if the solution, if it has some set of limitation, if the solution is profitable or not, what are recommendations, what are the various metrics and performance measures that have been set for that particular solution. So that is it about business analysis process, the process we take in delivering our tasks, the processes we take in executing our responsibilities as a business analyst. Now, that takes us to now the million-dollar question of who is a business analyst. So we've been talking about business analysis, what the various sectors are, what the processes are, right? What we do in business analysis. So the next question then is, who is a business analyst? And a business analyst is basically someone like you and myself whose sole responsibility is to identify, is to refine, and also is to communicate requirements and its solutions to stakeholders. Simply put, first you identify. After identifying, you refine and analyze. After refining and analyzing, then you communicate. You communicate it in different ways. You could communicate through documentation. You could communicate through presentation of a video in different ways. So a business analyst, to put it more formal, is someone who is responsible for discovering, synthesizing, and analyzing information from a variety of sources. And that is the beauty of business analysis. You don't just depend on one source of information, right? We don't just have one source of requirements. We explore every sources available. We explore stakeholders. We explore documents, existing documents. We explore using the internet, right? Research. We explore even using existing systems to discover and to also analyze and synthesize information, which is requirements. And we use a lot of tools and processes, and also we document these discoveries and analysis so that recommendations could be made regarding a solution that will deliver value to the stakeholders. As I said again, delivering value to stakeholders is one of the key mantra in business analysis. Unlike every other thing that people do, right? But for business analysis, one of the key mantra is to deliver value to stakeholders. If what you are recommending has no value to stakeholders, then it is worthless, it is useless. Let me give you a good example. So let's say me and you want to start a school, right? We want to start a school institution, a school, right? And then we went to approach a carpenter because we need desks and tables and desks and chairs for our students, right? And we want to start a school. We just tell the carpenter that, oh, please, we need you to build a desk and chair for us for our school. We need about 2,000 desks and 2,000 chairs for our students. And the carpenter just said, oh, okay, no problem. These chairs will be available in the next 1 month. Can you please come back in the next 1 month and it will be available? And we said, oh, fine, thank you. We go and then we come back. By the time we come back, the carpenter has designed a very beautiful chair and a very beautiful desk that we'll be using for our school. But the thing there now becomes that we found out that the chair and decks that the carpenter designed are basically meant for children that are between the ages of 13 to 21. Sorry, between the ages of 2 years to 8 years. That's for pupils. Whereas our school, what we are, the target audience or the target students we are looking at is for secondary school, people within the ages of 13 to 17 or people within the ages of 12 to 17 years old to sit on it. You realize that the carpenter did not take out time to identify or to understand what the requirement was for us, because we also them we want desks and chairs, right? And they went on to construct or build desks and chairs without asking questions such as who will be using these chairs, so that I can build what will give value to that person. That desks and chairs that the carpenter has built can give value to anybody, but for our specific stakeholders who are students in secondary schools, those chairs will not give them value. So it could be said that the solution that the carpenter has developed is worthless to our stakeholders. It does not deliver value to our stakeholders. That is why in business analysis, everything we are doing, we need to ensure that that particular piece of work that we want to do or that recommendation or the solution must deliver value to our stakeholders. So that is who a business analyst is. A business analyst can be seen as someone who is the bridge, right? Who is the linkage, the connection between the business and also IT. So we have business and we have IT. We have the business and we have technology. So business analyst is seen at the link as the bridge between that the bridge that links business and technology together, that helps business to understand technology and also helps technology to understand the business. That is what the business analysts do. So business analysts play a role in aligning the design and deliver solutions with the needs of stakeholders. So we have a designed solution and we have a delivered solution. Business analysts ensure that those solutions, even before they are being designed or delivered, that they align with the needs of the stakeholders. And some of the major things we do as business analysts, or some of the major responsibilities of business analysts are: one, business analysts helps in understanding the problems and the goals of an enterprise. How would you deliver value if you don't know what the problem is or what the objectives and goals are for your stakeholders? So the first thing is for us to understand the enterprise problems and also understand the enterprise goals, even as more granular as understanding their objectives and key performance indicators, right? Another thing we do as business analysts is analyzing the needs and the solution. Simply put, analyzing the requirements. We'll be able to understand what their problems and goals are, right? Then, what are the needs from the market, from the business, from the customer, from our competitors, from regulatory agencies, such as maybe we are building a financial solution. We need to understand what are the regulatory needs, regulatory requirements from CBN, right? So, what are the needs from various stakeholders? analyzing those needs and also the solution, then devising a strategy. What strategy should we use to build these products? What strategy should we use to solve this problem? What strategy should we adopt to satisfy our customers better? And then driving change. We don't just devise the strategy whereby we come up with a big strategy on how we can generate $2 million in a year or in a month. We don't just come up with that strategy. We are part of the team that drives the change. So we are driving the change. We are change makers, right? We are change drivers. We drive that change. And then we facilitate collaboration between different stakeholders within that initiative. Facilitate collaboration with the regulatory agency, with the business stakeholders, with the technical team, with your project managers, with the project sponsors, and all what's not. Now, that takes us to the next thing, to what we call business analysis core concept model. This is a core concept in business analysis. Just like when we started school, right? When a child is, let's say, 1 year old, and the child is taken to is first taken to school, maybe a daycare or a nursery school or kindergarten, depending on whatever class the parents want to put that child. The teachers there won't just start teaching. Won't just come up and start teaching the child what is photosynthesis, or what is anomalous displacement of carbon, or whatever thing, anomalous whatever, or what is an atom, or this. No, the teacher there at that stage will want to teach that pupil, that child, the basic concepts of learning, of education, right? If it is English language, if it is Hausa language, if it is Yoruba, if it is Igbo language, if it is Russian, if it is Swahili, whatever language that the teacher wants to use to teach that child, the first thing will be for that teacher to teach that child the basic concept in that particular language of learning. And these are what we call the core concepts. That is why the very first thing a child learns when they start schooling is alphabets, because this is the basic concept of every language. Vowels. These are the basic language of every language, right? Begin to learn A, B, C, D, E, F, and all of that, right? And why should a child go through that process? That is because for everything you do in your life in that language, you can't do it without A, B, C, D, and E. Even though you speak well or you write well, it's all as a result of the fact that you understand when to put A and where to put B and where to call C. If you don't know how to pronounce A, you won't know how to pronounce it in words, right? So these are the core concepts, the foundational blocks of education, right? So also in business analysis, even let me go beyond kindergarten and nursery. So also when we get to advanced level of education, and then in Nigeria, we say from GSS3, we'll move to SS1. In SS1, you now start making a choice of you want to go to science class, arts class, commercial class, right? So assuming when you get to science class, and then the first class in chemistry, the very first class in chemistry that we are having, the teacher comes into the class and starts teaching you people hydrocarbons. The very first class in SS1 in chemistry, teachers start teaching people hydrocarbons, how you are going to link carbon and hydrogen together to get a methyl, get a methanol, to get ethanol, alcohol, glucose. Start teaching you all of those complex things, right? Or they just start teaching you a lot of things that has to do with isotopy. The very first class in chemistry, teachers start teaching you isotopy, entropy. It becomes so confusing for you because they don't help you to you begin to try to ask questions that, how do I understand what this man or this lady is saying, right? But in those first days of chemistry classes, you will need to learn what we call the concept of chemistry, things that has to do with what is an atom, what is an element, what is a molecule, right? What is a chemical reaction, right? These are like the basic concepts of chemistry, because for everything we do in chemistry, it has to do with either an atom or an element or a molecule, right? Because you need to know how reactions occur, and reactions don't just occur without an atom or an element or a molecule being involved in it, right? So we need to know this basic concept because it will help you all throughout your journey in chemistry. Same thing with physics. We start learning what a mass is, what are SI units, right? You can't write a physics dimension without an SI unit, right? If I just come and I tell you that the temperature of this, a doctor just walks up to you and said that this boy has 23. I begin to wonder, what is 23, right? But when the doctor comes in and says the temperature of this boy is 23 kg, I begin to imagine, temperature of my son 23 kg. How come? When the temperature becomes kg, and that could be maybe pointing to the fact that probably the doctor missed some fundamental things that has to do with the SI units of in physics or in chemistry. So all of these are foundational and um, foundational understanding or concepts that people need to understand when they find themselves in a particular field. So also in business analysis, and I've been stressing these things because that shows how important business analysis core concept models are. If you miss out on the core concepts model of business analysis, if you don't understand it, if you don't satisfy it in every of your piece of work that you're doing, then you'll be missing out on what you need to do as a business analyst in that piece of work. So business analysis core concept model basically governs or is a conceptual framework for business analysis. It encompasses what business analysis is and what it means to those performing business analysis tasks, regardless of the industry you find yourself, regardless of the perspective, regardless of the project methodology, regardless of the level or your level in that organization. It basically has 6 terms. There are 6 terms, 6 items in business analysis core concept models. And these 6 terms have a common meaning to all business analysts. And they help business analysts to discuss both business analysis and its relationship with common terminologies in that particular initiative. The 6 core concepts in business analysis, that is BACCM, business analysis core concept model, are number 1, change. Number 2, need. Number 3, solution. Number 4, stakeholders. Number 5, value. And number 6, context. For every project or initiative you are doing, if you don't understand what a change is, if you don't know what the need is, if you don't know what the solution would be, if you don't know what the stakeholders, who the stakeholders are, and if you don't know what value means to those stakeholders, and if you don't know the context you are functioning or delivering that solution in, then you are just one way to failing in that particular project or that particular initiative. Whenever you find yourself in an initiative, you need to ask questions that falls along the boundary of what is the change? What are we trying to change? What is the need? What do you need as the stakeholders for us to do for you? How would you want the solution to look like? Would this solution satisfy this need? Who am I solving for? Right? That's the stakeholders. Then what these people I'm solving for, what do they consider to be value to them? And then in what industry, in what context are we solving this problem? Being able to ask and understand these questions would help you to successfully deliver every and any project you find yourself as a business analyst. So looking at the first one, which is change. Change on its own is an act of transformation in response to a need. So we've seen that CBN, just like what happened last year, early last year February. I don't know if you have an idea of cryptocurrency trading and all of that, or the cryptocurrency space. Early last year, the federal government through CBN came out and said that it's going to banning every crypto-related transaction to the naira. So there should be no crypto to naira transaction or trading. At that point in time, companies such as Luno, Patricia, and some other ones who are crypto businesses, Binance and the rest that supports the conversion of naira to crypto, they have to ask themselves, what can we change in order for us to satisfy this need from the Central Bank of Nigeria? Or for instance, when the federal government banned the activities of Twitter in Nigeria, Twitter was suspended in Nigeria, right? The owners of Twitter need to ask themselves, okay, what can we change? What change should we imbibe? What can we change, right, in order for us to satisfy the requirements, the regulatory requirements of the federal government of Nigeria? So understanding what the change is will help you to make success in your project. So change is the act of transformation in response to a need. That need could be a problem or it could be an opportunity. So that takes us to a need. A need is a problem or an opportunity that has to be addressed. We have a change that comes as a result of a need. And that need is there a problem? Maybe a problem could be like a regulatory problem, right? A regulatory requirements. A problem could be maybe we are losing finances. A problem could be attrition. Today, a lot of companies are witnessing high volume, high level of attrition. That is a problem for them. How do they solve that problem? Right? What do they need to change to solve that problem? It needs to also be an opportunity. Nigeria has a high population. This is an opportunity for us to build solutions. Why do you think companies are coming to invest in technology in Nigeria? Because there's a lot of technological gap in Nigeria. So that is an opportunity for investors to invest in IT. That's why we have so many technology companies, IT companies springing up day to day, and they need business analysts like you and I that will help them to identify the problem and opportunity that exists within the industry or within the markets. So a need is a problem or opportunity to be addressed. Needs can cause changes by motivating stakeholders to action. And then what is a solution? A solution is a specific way of satisfying one or more needs within a context. So are you seeing how the core concept model in business analysis all link with each other? A solution is a specific way of satisfying one or more needs in a context. A solution satisfies a need by resolving a problem faced by stakeholders. And who are stakeholders then? Stakeholders are basically a group or an individual with a relationship to the change, not with a relationship to only the solution or the need, but with a relationship to the change, with a relationship to the need, and with a relationship to the solution. These are people we call stakeholders, and these are people we need to satisfy. And then we now have value. Value is the worth, importance, or usefulness of something to a stakeholder within a context. Is the worth and the usefulness of something to a stakeholder within a context. If there is no value to stakeholders, then whatever change or solution we are building is worthless, is useless. And then the final one is context. Context are seen as circumstances. Just like when you're talking in English, when people are arguing, when people say, okay, what context are you talking about? Right? What context are you talking about? Right? Or people say, you quoted me out of context. Right? Context basically is the circumstances that influence or are influenced by and provide understanding of the change. Why do I say so? If For instance, when the federal government banned Twitter activities or operations within Nigeria, Twitter will want to understand in what context are these people banning us? Are they banning us from the context that we are fraudulent? If it is from the context that our activities are fraudulent, then the approach to resolving that will be different. Are they banning us from the context that we are not a tax-paying organization, yet we are making profit from the country? If that is the context in which they are banning us, then the approach to resolving that problem for Twitter will be different. Are they banning us from the context that we deleted the tweets of the president of the country? If that is the aspect or the context in which they banned us, then our approach to solving this problem or solving this need or solution will be different. So we need to understand in what context is this involved. By the time we are able to answer all of these questions that has to do with business analysis core concept model, that will help us to have a good understanding of how to tackle that initiative. And these questions are not things we just ask one-off. They are continuous things that we ask. So while planning or performing your tasks as a business analyst, you can consider how much core concept model is addressed by asking what kind of changes we are doing, what are the needs we are trying to satisfy, what are the solutions we are creating or changing, who are the stakeholders that are involved, what do stakeholders consider to be value, and what are the contexts that we and the solutions are found in. That takes us to the next section or segment that talks about key terminologies and stakeholder definitions in business analysis. What are the key terminologies that we use in business analysis? Right. Number one, business analysis information. Business analysis information is a key terminology that we use a lot in business analysis to represent the broad and diverse set of information that business analysts will need to analyze, broad set of information that business analysts will need to transform, and that they will need to report. Examples of business analysis information includes your elicitation results, includes your requirements, your designs, your solution scope, your change strategy. Don't bother yourself about these terminologies or jargons. You get to learn how to use them, what they mean in the course of the training. Then another terminology that you use is requirement. This is the most popular terminology we use in business analysis. In short, in solution delivery when it comes to IT. Requirements. The software developer will tell you that what is the requirement. The business owner will tell you what is the requirement. Requirement is a common terminology, or should I say the most common terminology we use in business analysis. And requirement on its own is a usable representation of a need. Could be a business need, a customer need, right? It could be a stakeholder need in terms of regulatory need, compliance need. It could be a financial need. It could be an environmental need. So requirement is a usable representation of a need. Requirements focus on understanding what kind of value could be delivered if it is fulfilled. The nature of representation may be a document, but can vary widely depending on the circumstance. Another terminology we use a lot in business analysis is design, which is a usable representation of a solution. So requirement talks about the need. Design talks about the solution. Design focuses on understanding how value might be realized by a solution if it has been built. Then we have plan, which is basically a proportion for doing or achieving something. We have enterprise or organization, and then we have risk. Risk basically is your certainty on the value of a change, solution, or the enterprise. Now, what then are some of the stakeholders? Who are some of the stakeholders that we work with in business analysis? Some of the stakeholders we find ourselves working with. Number one, in a project, you could be working with other business analysts, right? You find yourself working with other business analysts, and at this point in time, sometimes in a project, you might be the only business analyst working in that particular project. And sometimes you might have almost 4 or 5 business analysts, and that depends on the complexity of that initiative or complexity of that project. Another stakeholders we work with as business analysts are customers. Customers are those that have contractual or moral rights to use our products and services. And these are people that we are obliged to meet their needs, right? A good example, you have if you are using if you have an FCMB account, that means you're an FCMB customer. If you have an Access Bank account, you're an Access Bank customer. If you have a Barclays account, you're a Barclays customer. If you have an Amazon account, you're an Amazon customer, right? So a customer is someone who has a contractual or moral rights, right, to our products and services. So we can work with customers to ensure that we meet their needs. We also have domain subject matter experts. And as the name goes, domain subject matter experts. They are experts within that industry, within that domain that we are working. They are basically individuals with in-depth knowledge of a topic relevant to the business need or solution scope. For instance, if you want to build a medical solution for a hospital, right? A good example is an EMR, electronic medical reports, right? Assuming we are building an AMR, right, for a hospital close by, a subject matter expert will be a medical doctor, right, who most likely is going to who have a lot of understanding of how medical processes flows. Another subject matter expert will also be a nurse who understands clinical processes very well. Another subject matter process will also be, subject matter expert will be a pharmacist who understands drugs, medicine, and all of that, right? How to administer all of that. So subject matter experts are people we work with on a day-to-day basis. If we are building a financial solution, that means we're going to get subject matter experts with respect to compliance, people that understand financial compliance and financial regulations. Subject matter experts that understand financial processes, right? These are subject matter experts. So people who have in-depth knowledge in that business area, they are subject matter experts. Then we have end users. These are basically people that directly interact with the solution. Our end users could be our customer, and they can also be just an end user without being a customer. Remember, an end user will only become a customer if they have a contractual agreement with us. Do you understand? But an end user is not a customer if they don't have a contractual agreement. So simply put, an end user is someone who basically will not pay for a product and services, just uses it for free. While a customer is someone who have to pay or make some financial commitment to the usage of our products and services. Or we have an exchange, right, of an agreement because you want to use our products and services, right? That is a customer. So a customer could be an end user because anybody that uses your product is an end user. But if that person is paying for that service, that person is not just only an end user, but also a customer. So that's what I want you to understand. Then the next one is implementation subject matter experts. We've talked about domain subject matter experts, right? This one is implementation subject matter experts. And as the name goes, implementation, they are basically people that have in-depth knowledge on how to implement, how to build that solution, right? A good example is the software engineers. They have in-depth knowledge on how to write the code, such as your solution architects, such as your database administrator, such as your change consultant, such as your usability analyst and trainer. So these are people that have in-depth understanding, knowledge of how to build, implement, or develop that solution. These are called implementation subject matter experts, and we work with them as business analysts. Another example of stakeholders we work with in business analysis is operational support. These are people that are responsible for the day-to-day management and maintenance of a system of products. A good example, we have the help desks, people that work in support role, customer support. These are people that we work with to understand what are the complaints, what are the feedback, what are the issues that the customers are having. So they are called operational support. Another stakeholders that we work with in business analysis are project managers. These are people that are responsible for managing the work required to deliver a solution that meets the needs. They are in charge with balancing the project factors such as scope, budget, schedule, resources, quality, and risk. Project managers manage the project scope, the project budget, timelines, deliverables, schedule, resources, and whatnot. Another examples of project manager we have in the agile industry are Scrum Masters. So as business analysts in agile environment, we work with Scrum Masters. Now, another type of stakeholders that we work with are regulators. These are people that are basically responsible for the definition and enforcement of standards. Example, CBN. Example, FIRS, right? Example, United Nations. Example in UK is FPS. If you are building a financial solution, your financial solution must meet the regulatory standards of FCSC and FPS. These are the two common regulatory institutions we have in UK. In Nigeria, we have the CBN, right? In the oil industry, we have the NMPC regulatory standards and all what's not. So for every industry, there are regulators who ensure and enforce standardizations of processes and activities. So as business analysts, how do we work with them? You need to ensure we satisfy all their regulatory requirements. We ensure we satisfy all of the regulatory requirements of our regulators. So if you are building a financial solution, we ensure we satisfy all the regulatory requirements of CBN and every other financial regulators we have in the sector or in the industry. Another stakeholders we work with are the sponsors. These basically are people that are responsible for initiating the efforts to define a business need and develop a solution that meets that business need. They help in authorizing the work to be performed and control the budget and scope for that initiative. Another stakeholder we also work with are the suppliers, people that basically supply us with other products and services that our organization might not possess. For instance, you are working with Jumia and or maybe not even Jumia, want to start an e-commerce e-commerce company, and we want people to be able to make payments online. Instead of us building our own payment channel, we can basically leverage on suppliers or vendors such as Paystack or QuickTeller, right? Or PayPal for them to help us in processing payments online. So these are suppliers. You can also call them vendors. Then another stakeholders we work with are the testers or quality assurance. These ones, their job is to verify that the requirements we have given to them, the solution meets that requirement. You just ensure that to verify that the solution satisfies all the requirements that we have defined for the developers to implement or to build. And that takes us to the reclassification or requirement, which is requirement classification schema. How do we classify requirements? We have 4 classes of requirements or classification of requirements. Number 1 is business requirements. Business requirements is a high-level requirement that is a statement of goals, statement of objectives, and also a statement of outcomes that describe why a change has been initiated. So business requirement is a high-level requirement. It helps us to understand what are the business goals, what are the business objectives, what should be the business outcome, right? If you want to embark on any projects, you need to understand what the business requirements are. Because if you don't understand how what you are doing will make millions of naira or millions of pounds or dollars for your organization, then you are going to lose track or focus on what you are doing. So you need to understand the business requirement. And this is actually the first thing we try to understand whenever we find ourselves in an initiative. The next classification of requirements is stakeholder requirements. So class 1, business requirements. By the time we understand the business requirement, then we need to understand the stakeholder requirements. Stakeholder requirement means, what do stakeholders need, right, in this particular initiative? This describes the needs of stakeholders that must be met in order to achieve the business requirements. It means that since there's a requirement by the business, what are the things that stakeholders need us to do so that we can satisfy that need of the business? A good example, a business, company A, says that they want to start a lending business. And the essence of starting a lending business is that they want to see how to explore that industry, generate revenue, and they want that within the next 2 years, they want to be transacting close to 5 billion naira in GMV. GMV is gross merchandise volume, right? You want to be transacting close to 5 billion naira monthly in GMV, right? Now, you need to understand from stakeholders, what are the things we need to do for us to meet that transaction volume in 2 years? What are the things we need to do for us to meet the objective of having a lending business? Do we need a software? Do we need to employ people? Do we need what do we actually need? What has to be done for us to meet that business requirement? And that's what we do during stakeholder requirement. And then after that, we do what we call solution requirement, which is the next class of requirements. This helps us to understand the capabilities and qualities of the solutions that will meet the requirements of the stakeholders. Stakeholder requirements helps us to understand what we need to do to meet the business requirements. Solution requirements helps us to understand what will be the capabilities, what will be the features, what will be the functionalities and qualities of the solution that will help us to meet the requirements of the stakeholders. And there are 2 categories or subsets of stakeholder solution requirements. We have the functional requirement, which basically describes the capabilities or functionalities or features of a solution in terms of its behavior and information that it's going to manage. And then we also have the non-functional requirement or the quality of service requirement, which basically talks about the conditions that needs to be met for the solution to deliver effective or quality functions, right? And then the last class of requirements is what we call the transition requirement. And as the name goes, transition is not something that is steady or constant, static or constant, but something that helps us to move from point A to point B. So transition requirement defines or describes the capabilities that the solution must have and the conditions that the solution must meet to facilitate transition from the current state to the future state. But once we have moved from that current to that future state, the transition requirement is no longer useful. A good example is training manuals, right? When you buy a solution for the first time, let's say you buy a TV or you buy a DVD, that very first day or very first hours that you installed that DVD or television or whatever thing, you want to look at the manual to look at how to use the device, right? After a day or two, once you've gotten used to how to use that device, you no longer refer to that training manual whenever you want to operate your device because you have learned it. So that training manual is no longer useful to you. So these are transition requirements. This helps us to understand. This helps us in terms of conversion, data conversion, training, business continuity. An example is user acceptance testing, which is a use case, training manuals, and policy. For instance, when you join an organization for the first time, they will share the HR or organizational policy with you. After you've read through it and you understand it, you won't be referring to it anymore because that's helped you to transit effectively into that environment. So transition requirements helps to describe the capabilities that the solution must have and the condition the solution must meet to facilitate this transition from the current to the future state, but which are not needed once the change has been completed. That is also the last segment of the section today, which is the requirement and design cycle. How do we basically move from requirements to design? We start our journey of requirement to design by starting with our business requirements, right? Starting with our business requirements. And in business requirements, we ask, why do we want to do this? By the time we understand our business requirements, we move to stakeholder requirement. At this point in time, we're beginning to have a clearer picture of what the design should look like. And we're asking the stakeholders, what do they need? What are the needs? By the time we understand what they need, that will help us to now design the solution in our solution requirements, whereby we begin to know what do I want? What do the solution wants? And then the transition requirement talks about what are the conditions for us to assess. So the same technique we use in eliciting, modeling, and analyzing both requirement and design. A requirement leads to a design, which in turn, that is the design itself, could drive us to further discovery and analysis of more requirements. The business analyst may hand off requirements and designs to other stakeholders who may further elaborate on the designs. Whether it is you, the business analyst, or some other persons that complete the design, it is important for you to review the final designs to ensure that they align with the requirements you have specified. So that brings us to the end of the session today on Introduction to Business Analysis, trying to know what business analysis is. I don't know if you have any question. I'll be very much glad to entertain. So do you have any question? Is Anna?
Yes. Thank you very much, sir, for the presentation today. I really appreciate it. I would like to know or like to understand the role of a project owner in business analysis.
That is
when
it product owner or project owner or project manager?
No, not project manager. Project owner.
That's the owner of the project. Who is it? That is the project sponsor. Sir. That is the project sponsor.
Oh, that's the project sponsor.
Yes, the owner of the project. Yeah.
It's all right, sir. I feel a little bit intimidated with all these terminologies. I hope I get to learn them.
You don't need to feel intimidated. With time, you get used to all of this. Remember, I said always listen through the session over the week. You paid for this, and the recording is available for you. Once I stop the session, so let me stop the recording now. You realize that the recording will save, and it's always available for